Hello and welcome back to this week of the Space Within, the book that we're reading for the book group, the Brilliance book group with Wild Fig Solutions. And I'm Helen, if you've not met me before. I'm here this week to talk about chapters 7 and 8. So if you've been following along, that's where we're up to. And we've got 2 chapters this week. So 7 and 8 in terms of the key to high performance, which is chapter 7, and then chapter 8, which is living a guided life. And for this video today, I'm going to talk about something from chapter 8. So page 128, there's a section called Doing Without a Doer. And Michael tells a story about George Pransky, somebody who he worked with when he was first coming into this understanding. And one time when George was doing a corporate mediation and had an intern with him of his own, who was kind of learning the ropes. And they'd gone into this mediation, and fundamentally it was going, or looked like it was going terribly, with people shouting and nobody listening to George. And they came and had a break, and the intern was really concerned and was saying, well, what are you going to do, George? You've got to do something about this. And George was just very calm and said, well, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. And the intern was up in his head and, oh my goodness, you've got to know. And George didn't get flustered. George stayed calm and present, and presumably something came to him. It doesn't actually say in the chapter, but it does say, so if I just read a bit here, it says George wasn't unduly panicked because he knew 2 things. The first was that stress and pressure weren't conducive to creative innovation. The second was that inner knowing was both inevitable and inevitably worth waiting for. And I'm going to share something today around that, which is actually brand new. I've not shared it with anybody else yet. And I'd love to hear what you think. I'd love to get your opinions on it. Tell me if it resonates. Tell me if it doesn't. And it came from, related to that story, Michael talking about the black and whiteness of wisdom. So when those moments come with clarity, there's just an absolute obviousness to them. It is like black and white. It's like, well, of course I'm going to do this course, or of course I'm going to move to that country, of course I'm going to marry that person, or even just as simple as, of course I'm going to have that kind of sandwich for lunch. There's just an obviousness with it. There's no debate. There's no back and forth. It's just obvious. And I really agree with Michael on that. But then I also thought, but black and white thinking also happens at the level of sandbank thinking. So if you know my metaphor of the river, if not, jump back to chapter 5. I talk about that in the video in there. But so my sandbank thinking, sandbank of self, is very black and white. That also in 3 principles gets called personal thought, or you might know it as egoic thought, or the intellect, has all these different names, the conceptual mind. We can call it anything we like. But fundamentally, I was like, well, that's really black and white though. That mind really seems to say things like, I'm either good or I'm not, and I'm either capable of making a decision or I'm not. And I like that person or I don't. It seems very black and white. It's right or it's wrong, it's good or it's bad. And so that got me thinking about how the black and white and the grey flip positions in the normal versus the natural way of being. So let me share this thing and it'll probably help explain it more. So, exploring how wisdom brings simplicity. And this first slide is the normal route. So something happens and it looks like we need a decision or an answer or some action. And what we've been taught is to go into our heads, to go into our existing database of knowledge and find an answer, a right answer, no less. And so, as I say, I call that sandbank thinking. It also gets called personal thought or personal thinking, or the intellect or the ego. Oh, wrong slide, jumping ahead. But yes, it's recognised by that kind of busy-minded thinking. And so, as I said, this sandbank thinking is very black and white. And so in this circumstance, it thinks, well, there must be a right answer, an absolute right answer, and I should know it. You might recognise the kind of harking back to school days of that. there's a right answer and I'm going to get a tick or a cross. And that's very much how that level of thinking operates. So it's very black and white at this stage. And then, and because it thinks there must be a right answer and I must already know it, it then looks into its catalogue of stories. It looks into everything that it's gathered along the way, all the information, all the previous experiences, potentially putting some of them together and imagining a future one. And so it goes through an infinite number of possibilities of what the answer could be. So what did they mean when they said that? What if X, Y, or Z happens? Oh, this happened before, maybe that will work again. Or, oh, Charlie, I remember him saying this worked, so I could try that. Or what will it mean for me if I do this or I do that? Like, what does that future, what future would be created from that? And so it starts to spew out really infinite possibilities of ways of supposedly solving this problem. But very busy-minded, there's so much churning around there. Because there's a desperation to find the right one, and believing that if I can find the right one, then I'll be okay. And so it goes very grey and murky at this point, because it then just spins on its wheels. It's got nowhere to go apart from within itself, and stories upon stories upon stories, all based on I'll only be okay if I get it right. So the more natural way, the natural route, same situation, the decision or an action or an answer looks like it's required. And when we stay as the river of innate brilliance, when we stay in the flow of that natural wisdom and intelligence that we are, we automatically, naturally, inevitably know there are infinite possibilities of how this could be solved. Of course there are. That's just a given when we're in that space. And there's also a knowing that that's okay. I don't know, and that's okay. I don't know the answer. There are infinite possibilities of what we could do here, and that's okay. Because there's a knowing that my well-being doesn't rely on getting an answer right. Because there's also a knowing that there is no one singular right answer. This is not like a test in school. There are many ways this could be solved. And we do so much better when we stay in the knowing of that without having to use our intellect to solve it. And what comes from that, from being able to hang out in that grey space, knowing there are infinite possibilities and that I don't know, and that I'm okay in that not knowing, I'm okay in those infinite possibilities, then inevitably something comes at some point, at the only point it could possibly come. Oh, yes, of course. Now I know, it's obvious. And it's the perfect answer for now. Doesn't mean it's the right answer for Bob next week, or even for you in a week's time or 2 weeks' time, but it's absolutely obvious and right for now. And so at that point, that's what Michael was originally talking to. At that point, it's now black and white, night and day, in terms of the clarity that this is the thing to do. And still with no clinging to it, no grasping it as if it's right forever, no grasping to it as if it's right for everybody all the time. Just, oh yeah, this is it for right now. So I'd love to know what you think of it. I'd love to hear your experiences of both the normal route, where we get up in our heads and we create infinite, confusing, round and round the houses possibilities. And when we stay as we are, grounded in our well-being, in our knowing that we don't know, there are infinite ways this could be solved, and something will come. And the clarity when that answer arrives. So yeah, tell me what you think. Tell me what resonates. Tell me what doesn't. Tell me how I can improve this. Given it's a brand new thing, yeah, let me know what you think, and what would help it click better for you, or where you see there's something else going on. I'd love to know that. And yeah, see you back here next week for the last chapter, chapter 9, and the final thoughts. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.